We was them dudes. We was all trying, you know how New York is. It's like whoever's at the top, we gotta try to get past them.
That's real, yo. I ain't exaggerating at all, man. The more money you make, the more problems you get. And jealousy and envy is something that comes with the territory, man. A lot of people, it's just negative energy, like my man Puff say.
Wu-Tang Clan and Bad Boy Records, two names that shaped the East Coast rap scene in the 90s, but they couldn't have been more different in their approach to hip-hop. The rise of these two labels was inevitable, but what really happened between them? How did these two powerhouses, seemingly destined for success, end up at odds? Wu-Tang Clan's emergence wasn't just about a group of rappers coming together. It was about redefining the entire East Coast sound. Born in Staten Island, the Wu-Tang members brought a raw, unfiltered style to the game. Their music wasn't polished or flashy. It was real. They spoke directly from the streets, sharing stories of struggle and survival. What set them apart wasn't just their sound, it was their authenticity. Wu-Tang was about being real, no matter how rough it might seem. They didn't aim for mainstream radio play or over-the-top visuals. Instead, they made music that resonated deeply with their core audience, the ones who lived by their lyrics. In contrast, Bad Boy Records came onto the scene in 1993.
Just like Uniblab, robotic kick and flab, or flavor bit of batter, chitter chatter, matter than the Mad Hatter. I bet you buy.
With a completely different agenda. Led by Sean Diddy Combs, Bad Boy was designed to be a commercial juggernaut. It was all about big beats, flashy visuals, and, above all, making hit records. Diddy, with his entrepreneurial mindset, turned Bad Boy into the ultimate East Coast brand. But here's where things got interesting. Wu-Tang and Bad Boy were representing two sides of the same coin. One was about pure artistry, raw talent, and an underground DIY mentality. The other was about success, visibility, and market dominance. Naturally, this divide set the stage for conflict. It wasn't just about the music, it was about the way music was being made and sold. While Wu-Tang rejected the mainstream, Bad Boy embraced it, leaving a gap between the two that can never be bridged without some tension. As both labels rose to power, the competition got more intense. Wu-Tang's refusal to conform to industry standards clashed with Bad Boy's need to dominate the charts. It wasn't just about who had the better flow or the tighter beats. It was about who could define the era. In 1995, Wu-Tang Clan's Raekwon released his debut solo album, Only Built for Cuban Links, which became a landmark in the rap world.
Yo, first of all, son, beat the arson. Many brothers I be sparking and busting mad like inside the door.
The album was praised for its storytelling and raw lyricism. Tracks like Ice Water and Criminology solidified Raekwon's place in hip-hop history. But it wasn't just the music that made waves. There was a skit on the album called Shark Nigga that stirred up a storm of controversy and created a lasting ripple between Wu-Tang and Bad Boy Records. The cover of the Notorious B.I.G.'s Ready to Die album, 1994, features a baby version of the Notorious B.I.G. with the plain white background.
As I grab the Glock, put it to your headpiece, one in the chamber, the safety is off, release.
The simplicity of the image is striking, and the baby symbolizes innocence and new beginnings, contrasting with the heavy, introspective themes of the album. Shark Nigga was a skit where Raekwon and his Wu-Tang counterpart, Ghostface Killah, referenced Biggie Smalls' iconic album cover, Ready to Die. The cover features a small baby sitting against a plain white background. Wu-Tang's skit mocked this image, referencing it in a subtle but unmistakable jab. This attack was seen by many as an indirect diss at Biggie and his commercially mainstream image under Bad Boy Records. The implications were huge. At the time, Bad Boy Records, led by Sean Diddy Combs, was dominating the rap world with its polished commercial sound, and Biggie was the crown jewel of that empire. Wu-Tang, on the other hand, represented something completely different. Raw, unrefined street poetry, unafraid to reject the mainstream. While the skit Shark Nigga didn't explicitly name Biggie, the connection was clear enough for fans and media to instantly link it to the East Coast rivalry. Raekwon and Ghostface later claimed that their intentions were not to directly attack Biggie. Instead, they argued that the skit was meant to show love and respect for Nas, another artist they deeply admired.
I love Big. You know what I mean? And I wish, like, before they did what they did to him, me and Ray and Cap was up in the club, I think it was the Key Club or something like that, remember?
Capadonna?
Yeah, and we fucked around, I shook his hand, met him and all that shit, because I was like, I was done with all that.
Nas, at that point, had become the ultimate symbol of the underground, poetic style that Wu-Tang stood for. The Wu-Tang Clan had already thrown their weight behind Nas, supporting him as the new king of New York, a direct challenge to Biggie's position at the top. Despite this explanation, the media frenzy surrounding the skit was unavoidable. As soon as Shark Nigga dropped, rumors and speculation spread like wildfire. The media, always eager for conflict, portrayed the situation as an all-out war between Wu-Tang and Bad Boy. They had their headline, "Wu-Tang fires the first shot at Bad Boy." The story of this rivalry soon became one of the hottest topics in hip-hop culture, driving fans to pick sides. The media's portrayal of the situation was so powerful that even Wu-Tang's attempts to explain themselves couldn't silence the gossip. It suddenly seemed like a confrontation was bound to happen. So, who really fired the first shot in this rivalry? Was it Wu-Tang and their critique of the commercial hip-hop world? Or was it Bad Boy with their aggressive stance on mainstream success? The answer isn't clear-cut. Wu-Tang's rejection of mainstream rap culture was bound to rub some people the wrong way. Biggie Smalls was upset by the skit. Biggie, despite his towering persona, had a deep sense of pride in his music and his image. The jabs at his album cover stung, and it said that he immediately recorded a diss track in retaliation. The track, aimed at Raekwon and Ghostface, was allegedly filled with angry shots and direct bars aimed at Wu-Tang's authenticity. But here's the twist. Biggie chose to never release the track. Instead, he deleted it.
His manager at the time was Jacob York and released this statement. When Raekwon's Only Built for Cuban Links album dropped, and we heard the Shark Biters interlude, we heard that and we were like, what the hell was that about? No one saw it coming. It came out of the left field. It got squashed that fast. You ever notice that Biggie never put out a diss record against him? He rapped it. He got it off his chest. He just told me to erase it.
Why? There are a few theories. One possibility is that Biggie wanted to avoid escalating the situation into an all-out beef. He had enough on his plate with Bad Boy's rise to fame, and engaging in a public battle with Wu-Tang could have distracted from the bigger goal, continuing to dominate the rap scene. Another theory is that Biggie wanted to rise above the chaos and not get caught up in a back and forth with a group like Wu-Tang, whose appeal was largely underground and raw. In a way, deleting the track showed maturity and strategic restraint. Biggie wasn't going to let the media or anyone else dictate his moves. Instead of releasing a diss track, Biggie took a more subtle route. On his 1997 track, Kicking the Door,
Your reign on the top was short like leprechauns as I crush so-called willies, thugs, and rapadons.
Biggie responded with indirect shots that weren't as direct but still unmistakable. The song was filled with references to people who thrown shade at him, without specifically calling anyone out. Biggie's lyrics on this track were a statement. He was aware of the criticisms, but he wasn't going to waste his time on a full-blown feud. The subtlety of these lines allowed Biggie to express his anger without fueling the fire further. Despite the tensions in the media and between the camps, Diddy pushed for collaborations, attempting to bridge the gap between the beef. But this wasn't Diddy's business sense at work. He genuinely saw the value in maintaining relationships with Wu-Tang, understanding that both camps were major players in the industry, and a feud would only weaken both of their positions. However, RZA, the mastermind behind Wu-Tang, wasn't entirely convinced. He had always been protective of the group's image, and he didn't want Wu-Tang to become too closely associated with the commercial side of hip-hop, as represented by Bad Boy. He warned Method Man against working with outsiders like Biggie. For RZA, this wasn't just a matter of business, it was about preserving Wu-Tang's authenticity. Despite these warnings, Method Man continued to engage with artists outside the Wu-Tang family. His collaborations, including the What track with Biggie,
playing the villain, prepare for this rap killing. Biggie Smalls is the illest. Your style is played out like
with the business side of hip-hop in full force. It created tension within Wu-Tang, as some members felt that Method Man's dealings with Bad Boy were a betrayal of their values. But at the same time, Method Man was building his brand, navigating the ever-growing competition of the rap world while trying to maintain his ties to Wu-Tang. Behind closed doors, Diddy worked his magic, trying to ease tensions between Wu-Tang and Bad Boy. In a world where the public image of rivalries often overshadows the real story, Diddy knew that peace between these two factions was good for business. Diddy's strategy was simple: keep it professional, even when the media made it seem like there was an all-out war between the camps. Yet, despite Puff's efforts, the behind-the-scenes tension was noticeable. On the surface, both camps remained cordial in public, methodical and strategic in their approach to avoiding full-blown conflict. But behind the scenes, both Wu-Tang and Bad Boy were calculating their next moves, unsure of how to navigate the complex web of business, competition, and artistry. Each camp knew that the other was a threat, not just in terms of music, but also in terms of power in the industry. In a surprising turn of events, Raekwon and Ghostface Killah of Wu-Tang decided to step back from the feud, choosing to make peace with Biggie Smalls. In interviews years later, the two admitted that they shook hands with Biggie at a club in New York, a moment that was as much about mutual respect as it was about ending an ongoing conflict. It was a brief yet significant moment of reconciliation in the face of what had become one of the most talked about rivalries in hip-hop. At the time, Biggie had been one of the most influential figures in East Coast rap, with Bad Boy enjoying massive success. However, despite his previous disdain for Wu-Tang, Biggie was willing to meet with them and bury the hatchet. Tragically, Biggie Smalls would be murdered just one day after this moment of peace. The timing made this reconciliation all the more emotional. It was as if Wu-Tang and Bad Boy had come to terms with their differences, only for the world to lose one of his greatest talents so suddenly. Biggie's death cast a long shadow over the hip-hop community, and for Wu-Tang, it was a reminder of the fragile nature of the game. In the aftermath of Biggie's death, Wu-Tang members, particularly Ghostface Killah, reflected on his impact on the rap game. In an emotional admission, Ghostface revealed that Biggie's death hit him harder than Tupac's, acknowledging the influence Biggie had not just as an artist, but as a figure who represented a significant period in East Coast rap. For Ghostface, and for many in Wu-Tang, Biggie was an undeniable force in the culture, a force that helped shape the East Coast sound and define an era in hip-hop. While the beef between Wu-Tang and Bad Boy had started out as a competition for dominance in the East Coast rap scene, it eventually fizzled out. The rivalry, which once seemed to be a battle for the crown of New York, turned into a legacy battle. Biggie's death marked the end of that chapter, and both Wu-Tang and Bad Boy began to reflect on their respective contributions to the culture, respecting each other's artistry in ways that weren't always apparent during their early conflicts. Now, as we look back, it's clear that Wu-Tang and Bad Boy, with all their differences, helped shape the sound and legacy of East Coast rap. But hey, what do you think? Was it all about the music, or was there more to this story behind the scenes?